Hi everybody, this is Xiomara from Fitness XD, and today I'm going to take you through how to take your body measurements. So keeping track of your progress for fitness or nutritional weight loss, fat loss goals, we all know that scale weight is a way that we can track that progress. However, most of us fail to think about taking our body measurements. Taking our body measurements can arguably be a better way to track our progress. Why is that? Well, scale weight doesn't tell us really a whole lot about what's going on with our body in terms of lean body mass versus fat mass. So you might be doing resistance training and you might be eating well, but the scale's not really moving. But you look in the mirror and then you see your clothes and you're like, man, this is like fitting so much better. My pants are looser. I feel like my shirts are looser in my arms. But then you look at the scale and you're like, shit, I only lost like 2 pounds. What's up with this? Well, that's because you're probably developing a bunch of lean body mass, which is good. This is what you want. You want to lose fat and make lean body mass. So there's a huge misconception that muscle mass weighs more than fat mass. No. 1 pound of muscle weighs the same as 1 pound of fat, okay? It's the same thing as I said, if I gave you the old analogy of when we were kids and you probably saw a picture that was like a pound of feathers and a 1 pound cement block, and then you were asked what weighs more. And some people were like, oh, the cement block. No, they both weigh the same, they just have different volume, okay? So the feathers, 1 pound of feathers, it just takes up a lot more space for it to make up the same amount of mass. Whereas your cinder block, it has the density of it takes up less volume to make up the same amount of mass. This is the same for fat and muscle. It takes a lot less muscle for it to weigh the same and take up less room than 1 pound of fat, okay? So please don't get frustrated when you step on the scale and you're like, damn, I only lost 1 or 2 pounds. What's going on? I feel better, but the scale's not saying I should look better, right? Well, let's take your body measurements instead. As you develop muscle, because you've been resistance training, you've been focusing on your protein intake, you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to develop, again, muscle mass. So you should be taking your measurements to track over time how your body is changing. So I'm going to take you through a step-by-step guide of what you should be measuring so that you can track your progress. Now, I recommend that you do this every 2 to 4 weeks, and along with it, try and take a progress picture as well, okay? All right, everybody, so here is how we take the measurements. So this is going to work out better if you are doing it with somebody else. So I've enlisted my husband here to help us demonstrate how to do this. So if you want your own measurements taken, then have somebody take them of you, or you can take them for somebody else with the help of this video. So I have my measurement tape here, and you can either use inches or the centimeter side. It's up to you how you want to track it. If you are watching this from the US, likely inches, and everywhere else, centimeters. But you keep track however is best for you. So we're going to begin top down. Now when it comes to limbs, so your arms and your legs, you can only take the measurements for one side or you can take them for both sides. So most people are fairly symmetrical, so your thighs and your arms should be roughly the same size, but others, we're gonna have significant differences in the size of your limbs. So I do recommend, if this is your very first time ever taking your measurements, that you take both your right and your left. And then in the future, you can decide if you only want to track one side or continue to track both. I personally track both, while my husband here tracks only one side of his body. If you end up tracking one side of your body, I do recommend that you do your dominant side. So if you're right-handed, right-hand side of your body. If you're left-handed, left-hand side of your body. All right, now to start, Harold is already standing here, roughly feet hip distance apart. Now I want you to stand up straight. So we always want to think of the 5 kinetic checkpoints. So that's your head, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles. So that means that everything should be in line and you should be in proper posture. So we're going to stand feet hip distance apart, and then we're going to take our pelvis and we're going to engage our glutes a tiny bit, but I don't want you to contract them and I don't want you to suck in your core or flex your abs. Try to take these measurements in a rested state. If you want to take flex measurements, I do recommend that you take flexed and unflexed. For example, most men want to know what their bicep is flexed. Some women might want to know how much they can contract their glutes. So just take both of them. So let's go ahead and get started from the top down, and we'll start with our necks. So Harold is standing here straight, facing forward. I'm going to take the tape measurement, and I'm going to wrap it around. Now for men, this is easy because you just find the Adam's apple and then you make sure to take a straight measurement across of it. For a woman, just try and find the center of your neck. Make sure that the tape measure is level, and then you're going to record that. Now the next measurement is going to be shoulders. This is one that's most men mostly track, women don't. It's up to you if you want to record this one, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So stand with arms at sides, not crossed together, and make sure that you're sitting up straight. We're going to take the tape measure again, and we're going to put it around the widest point of the shoulders, and make sure that this is straight. So you see here how I'm not letting it sag and I'm keeping it straight. Now you'll see that there's going to be a little bit of a gap here. That's fine, because that's going to be your widest point. You just want to make sure that one side isn't up and then the other one is down. So you'll record that. Now I'm going to have Harold lift his arms to the side so that we can record the torso. So for the torso, you're going to find the middle of your chest, so roughly around your nipple area, and then you're going to take the measuring tape and you're going to wrap it around. So make sure that you do this with somebody that you're comfortable taking your measurements. Now I'm going to slide this up, and then we would record this measurement right here. When you're recording, always make sure that you're not pressing too tightly like this. You see how I'm squeezing? That's going to give us a false measurement. Instead, simply rest the measurement tape here and record. Now, I'm going to ask Harold to please lift his shirt so that we can take the waist measurement. So the waist should be taken at the smallest point of your torso, okay? So that's going to be your natural waist. So for me, it's very simple to see. It's going to be right in the spot before I get wide again. For men, it can be a little bit tougher to find. So if we look at Harold, it's going to be roughly in this area. So making sure that our tape measure is level. So you see how I am overlapping it here. And again, I don't want to squeeze. I want to make sure that I'm simply resting the tape measure. So that's going to be your natural waist. Then you're going to do your hips. So the hips are going to be the widest point, which is going to be very different for everybody, especially men to women. So if I look at Harold, for men, the hips are generally taken about here, where your pants rest. Whereas for me, I would record it as roughly about this area where I am the widest. So let's take his measurement. Now, this is a video, so I'm not gonna let him pull his pants down. But you can see here that the waistband is going to have an influence on this measurement. So in the privacy of your home, whoever is helping you measure, I would lower your pants down and then take this measurement so you don't have the influence of any sort of waistband in the way, okay? So again, making sure that everything's level. Simply take the measurement here. All right. Now here's an optional measurement that I like to take because we are all shaped differently. So I like to take a measurement around the belly button, and I like to call it the abs or the core, just because a lot of us could store fat in our abdominal. And when you take a measurement at your smallest point up here at your waist, and then your hips that might be lower, you're not really going to get a measurement of what's going on in here, and a lot of us store fat in the obliques. So I'm gonna have Harold pull up his shirt again and show you how to take that. So find your belly button. and then you're simply going to take a measurement directly across of it, okay? So again, make sure that you're not flexing your stomach, you're not sucking it in, so that you have an accurate measurement as you move forward. If you do flex your stomach, make sure that you take a note of that so that in the future you know exactly what you did. All right, the last measurement that we're gonna take is going to be the glutes. So I'm gonna ask Harold to stand sideways. Now for the glutes, you want to find the roundest point in your glutes. So if I look at him, and I lift his shirt, it's gonna be roughly in this area. So can you put your arm up, please? So finding this spot right here, wherever the glutes are at their largest, you're then going to take this measurement and make sure that everything's level, all right? So that's gonna be the last of the torso measurements. Now we're gonna move over to the limbs. So let's start over with the arms. So I'm gonna ask Harold we're gonna roll up his sleeve. Now to keep this consistent, we're always gonna do this measurement 2 inches below the armpit. And as I said, try not to flex. And if you do flex, make a note of it and take your unflexed measurement as well. So lift your arm. We're just gonna go to the armpit crest here, find the 2-inch mark here. So I'm gonna keep my thumb there so that I have a measurement reference, and then I'm gonna place this here. And I'm simply going to wrap this around, okay? Making sure that it is not crooked, I'm not squeezing his arm. Now let's do a flexed arm one. So go ahead and flex your bicep. If you're going to take a flexed measurement, I recommend that you find the widest portion in your arm, and that's the point you're gonna record. So this is gonna vary for everybody, but it should be, can you flex again? But it should be in the center of the bicep muscle, okay? So again, just like the rest of the measurements, simply take this, all right? Right around the thickest part of the muscle. Now we're gonna move down to the limbs. So we're gonna do the leg and the calf, and that's going to be it. So for the thighs, I'm gonna ask Harold to stand a little bit wider than hip distance apart. So where he's at now, it's good. He already adjusted for me. Now, just like your arm, instead of going, we're gonna pick a spot from the crest and then measure down so that you're always measuring in the same spot. So we're gonna pick 5 inches below the crest from your thigh to your pelvic bone, okay? So I'm gonna do the sides and see. So we're gonna go from this crest here and we're gonna measure 5 inches down so you guys see this spot. Then I'm going to take the measurement tape in this spot and I'm going to wrap it around his thigh, make sure that everything's level, Harold's not flexing, and then we would record that measurement again, make sure that everything is even. And then last but not least, we're going to finish off with the calf. So we're going to find the widest point here. Harold has ginormous calves, so it's gonna be fairly large. All right, so again, make sure that everything's even, make sure that you do it at the thickest spot, and that's it. So those are all of the measurements. Again, make sure that you make a note of if you flex at any point, and make sure that you make a note if you took a measurement of your right side or your left side arm, and same with your legs. I do recommend that you do both sides if this is your first time. Now, just as a final review, we want to measure the neck, the shoulders, the chest at the nipple level, your natural waist, which is going to be the smallest point. You're also going to do your hips, which is then going to be the widest point of your legs looking forward. You can also do a abs measurement, dash obliques, and that's going to be taken around your belly button here. So make sure that you're not flexed when you do this one. And then lastly, you're gonna do your glutes, where you're gonna find the spot when you stand sideways of where your glutes are at their largest. That should be around the center of your butt. And then you'll move on to the limbs. So you'll do the arms, which is going to be 2 inches below your armpit. Then you'll do your thigh, which is gonna be 5 inches below the crest right here, where your thigh joins your pelvis. And then lastly, you're going to do your calf. Now, every time that you take your body measurements, I also recommend that you record your weight that day. And I also recommend that you take a progress picture just so that you can see how you have changed over time. Numbers are great, but visuals are even better, all right? Pictures, they always say, speak 1,000 words. So I highly, highly recommend that you also take a picture. And ultimately and finally, I do recommend that you do this every 2 to 4 weeks, and that you try to do it at the same time every time that you take the measurements. So if you do it in the morning the first time, try to do it in the morning again. If you do it after breakfast, try to do it after breakfast. If you do it at nighttime after dinner, which I don't really recommend because then you have all this food and water in you, and that can really influence your body figure, then make sure that you take it at the same time after dinner the following time. So my recommendation, wake up, drink your coffee if you drink coffee, use the restroom, and then weigh yourself and take your measurements, okay? So that's it. Thank you, Harold, for your help. I hope you guys found this video useful, and I'll see you next week with a new blog post. Bye.